Hey, friends, and welcome to the Amazing Entrepreneurs Club. We're glad you're here today for this conversation with another amazing entrepreneur. I'm really excited to welcome to the podcast today, Judy Hoberman. Now, Judy is actually focused on empowering professional women. She's an award-winning international speaker, best-selling author, and trainer, and a leading authority on women in leadership. Judy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I am super excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And so for our listening audience, because I kind of butchered your bio just a little bit, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
How far back do you want me to go?
As far as you would like to in 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. You take as much time as you'd like.
No, actually, what you said is my focus is on empowering professional women. I come from a very long background of being in male-dominated industries. And so my whole thing is to make sure that women have the tools and the strategies to be successful. With that said, I don't leave men out because I do encourage men to be part of the plan, because we can't do this by ourselves. And because there are men that, like you, are very big champions of women. So I make sure that that's part of it. But my company is called Selling in a Skirt. So right then and there, people assume, and I'm using air quotes, that it's just for women, but skirt is an acronym. So it has nothing to do with the article of clothing. But you have to be careful how you brand yourself, because I always have to wear a skirt. So my next book is going to be Selling in Pajamas or Yoga Pants or something.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So you got a book, Selling in a Skirt. And you have another book too. What's it called?
I actually have 4 books, but 2 books that I really work on. Selling in a Skirt was my baby. That's the first one. And my last one is Walking on the Glass Floor. One is sales, one is leadership. My other 2 books one is about the mistakes entrepreneurs make, which is perfect for you, which is called Famous Isn't Enough. And the third book was a compilation book called Pure Wealth. But it's really sales and leadership that we play with.
All right, so we'll grab all of those books, information, and the links to them. We'll drop them down in the show notes so that you have access to them for those of you listening. So Judy, I love what you do. I've heard your story. Judy lives close to me. We've actually met and had coffee before. And so had the opportunity to really get to know each other a little bit. And, I knew that you were going to be one of my very first guests to come join us because I love your story. Can you tell us just a little bit of your story of transitioning from corporate life to being an entrepreneur?
So it actually was, I was an entrepreneur for a long time. And then I had the opportunity to be corporate. And I say that because it was very different for me. Having something deposited into my checking account every other week was something I had never been a part of. But I was, I worked in corporate. I was in charge of all training. It was product, it was leadership, it was building a university. It was amazing because I come from the insurance and financial industry, and I was going to be training 4,000 agents. And I love that. What I didn't love about it was the environment, the culture that I was involved with. And to me, I always feel like if it's not right, you shouldn't be there. And so I lasted for 2 years, and I felt myself like drowning, and I just didn't want to do that anymore. And so I jumped without a parachute, without anything. And I just thought, I have to go back to what I know. And so a couple of years ago, now it's like 12 years ago, I decided I was going to go back to being an entrepreneur. And when I left, it was a very interesting process for me because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I sat myself down and I said, okay, if I was starting all over again, like I did a million years ago, what would I be looking for? And what I would be looking for was somebody that looked like me. And I don't mean physically, but somebody that would have understood what it's like to be a female going through the process and how do you navigate and all these things. So I built a playbook and I became that person. So when somebody said to me, I don't know how to do this, or I'm trying to get a promotion or whatever it is, been there, done that. And so I became that person. And so that's what I've been doing since 2009.
So you were an entrepreneur, then you went into the corporate world, and then you came back to being an entrepreneur. And our stories have a little bit of parallel to the fact that we both just jumped off a cliff and said, enough is enough. I'm going to go do my own thing. I love the discovery process that you went through to really like, what would I need? I took a couple of months off to do this exactly the same thing, to really try to discover it. But you also have been paying attention, and you've been making pivots based on what the world is doing, what the world is saying, but also what your customers are saying. Yeah. So share a little bit real quickly, if you don't mind, what exactly are you doing today that's very tactical that you're helping your clients with?
So one of the biggest things that I have discovered over the last year or two is about connection, and people are starving for connection, especially women. And so what I did, after I lost 2/3 of my business because of, the pandemic. And I put on my big girl panties and said, okay, cry. So I did for 20 minutes. And then I got up and said, okay, now what? I started to build these programs that weren't on the radar at all. And it had nothing to do with what I ordinarily did, but I did things that would connect people. And so I did panels of exceptional women. I did roundtables of phenomenal women. And then I started building a course last year about sales, because I knew everybody's in sales and they were having such a difficult time figuring out, how do you sell? Why is it so difficult? So I try to make things easy. And that's what people always say about me. You make it so easy. So right now I'm in the process of launching one on leadership, another course, because people are asking for it. I just read this morning that in 2022, of the 5 digital products that are going to be available, the ones that are going to have the most impact, one of them are courses. So there it is, so that's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to make sure that I have the tools that my clients, which are basically women, are looking for.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you highlighted that statistic. I heard that earlier today as well. You have soon to be 2 courses. I'm working on my first course, though I have an idea for the second course. Judy and I are part of the same group. I actually joined because of Judy. Joined the group Power Up Accelerator. So I'm really excited about that and how it's helping me. So I have one course that's under development and another one that is an idea. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of months with them as I move them forward. So Judy, I want to dive into the questions. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. What made you want to become an entrepreneur? What was it that just said, this is what I've got to do?
I think most people would tell you or tell me that I need to be my own person, because I like to get things done. And if somebody's not going to work the way that I work, I'll just do it myself. It's just much easier for me. I can work with people. I do know how to do that. But sometimes it's just easier for me to say, okay, I want to do this, and then just do it. So I think that's part of it, is that I have a clear vision of where I need to be, and I bring people along with me. But sometimes I just need to do my own thing.
So what I love about what you just said is that as entrepreneurs, those of us that kind of work, we both work for ourselves, and we have small teams that support us. The only people that we have to ask for forgiveness from are our spouses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have to ask for permission from anybody, but we have to ask for forgiveness from my wife, and you do from your husband. Like, hey, I'm going to go and do this. If let me reframe that. I just want you to know that I went and did this, so that, it's kind of after the fact. We don't have to ask for permission. And that is one of the best things about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The only person that we have to hold accountable is us.
Yeah. And it's funny, because when I did my TED Talk, I was a nervous wreck. And so I had to apologize the week before to my husband. And I said to him, please, I am going to be very snarky this week. I promise you that. So please don't be upset with me, but I'm going to be snarky. I was so scared because of the story I was going to tell. And so he said, just be yourself. And then he went, well, maybe not.
So when did you do your TEDx speak?
I did it about 4 years ago.
Is it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. It's on, and it's in my signature. So there's a link there, but it is on YouTube. It's called The Greatest Missed Opportunity. And it's all about prejudging people.
All right. We will also drop that into the show notes so that you can listen to Judy's TEDx as well. So thank you for sharing that. So Judy, I really would like to know your perspective about what makes you an amazing entrepreneur.
I think what makes me amazing entrepreneur is that I'm not afraid to try things. I've always been a risk taker. I'm not afraid to try things. I may not agree with something somebody will tell me, but I'm not afraid to try it. And I don't just try something once. I have to do it a number of times to make sure that I really don't like it or that I do love it. And so I have my ears open all the time, because I'm a very good listener. So when I hear that somebody says we're missing this, or we need that, or could you do this? I'm a good listener. So I think that makes it a little bit different. And like I said before, people tell me that I make things easy for them. And so why not join me? Because I'm going to make it easy. I do. When I sold insurance, which is one of the most complicated things in the world, my clients would say to me, oh my God, that was so easy. Like I've never understood this before, because I have to share the way that I need to learn. And so it's easy.
So one of the things that I really appreciate that you just said, and I feel that I'm this way a little bit too, you listen to what is missing. You listen to what people are saying. I kind of say that a little bit as I see opportunity.
Right.
I can talk to somebody about something and literally in my head, I can vision the business. Like Okay, here's a huge opportunity for a business model here. If somebody wants to take the plunge or wants to do it or wants to develop, and I've helped companies develop those types of opportunities, but there's something about I don't like the word visionary, but I can see it. When you're talking to me about something, I can see the business opportunity that exists.
Yeah, and I'm an implementer. And so sometimes when somebody whips out the whiteboard, I start to sweat because that's not who I am. I can see it, but I don't need like the 5,000 different things that are going to be on that board. Just tell me what you need and I'm going to do it. And so my husband's a strategist and I'm an implementer. So it's great. He has this, he's got a big brain and I just say, okay, let's just do it like this. So I think that sometimes it's harder for people like us to get the idea, you get the idea, just do it. Because other people are like, okay, but wait, there's 7,000 parts to it. I don't care. Just tell me where there and I'm out.
I love that. We are a lot alike, Miss Judy.
I
There's
know.
absolutely no doubt. All right. So I want to move on to our next section. Sorry about that. I have 3 questions for you. Okay. You ready?
Yep. I'm hanging on.
What has been your biggest challenge as an entrepreneur and how did you overcome it?
My biggest challenge was when I first went back to being an entrepreneur, it was finding clients, because I truly believe that there are opportunities all around you. But for me, I was in a new city. I didn't know anybody. I had been here for 2 years and I was traveling 95% of the time. How was I going to find my right fit client when I didn't know anybody? And the only people I knew were the people I just resigned from. So it wasn't a very good networking opportunity. And I thought that for me was the hardest thing, was trying to make a name for myself. And once I, put my mind to it, and once I started networking and everything, people would say, oh, do you know Judy Hoberman? She is everywhere, but it took a while to get there. And that was my biggest challenge, because when I would speak somewhere, people would say, oh my God, you're so awesome. But they never hired me because I had no history. So I had to really do a lot of work in order for people to figure out who I was, what I did, and why they needed to work with me. So that was hard in the beginning.
So did the way you overcame that, Judy, was it going to networking events? Was it doing online things? I mean, what were some, if you would, tactical steps that you took to overcome that challenge and to conquer that new city? Didn't know very many people. The people that you had met were people that you were working with and you were traveling 95% of the time. So I totally understand that. So give us like 2 things you did to tactically overcome that.
So one was networking events. And I found that in the beginning, I went to every networking event, and that was ridiculous because you're wasting your time when it's not even anybody. I mean, they're lovely people, but they're not anybody you need. So the first thing I did was I did my research and I tried to find the places where my people would hang out. So the first thing I had to do was identify who my person was. And that's a big step. You have to sit there and you have to really think about it. The second was the networking portion of it. Now, one of the things that I found is I'm an introvert. So when I walked into a networking event and there would be hundreds of people there, I froze because I didn't know what to do. So what I started to do, which is a really big hack, what wasn't called a hack back then, but was a very big hack, I was the first person that showed up at a networking event. When you're the first person, guess what happens? People walk up to you. And so I found that to be much easier. And people would say, hey, my name is John. What's your name? My name is Judy, and then the conversation would start. So but I had to do the networking. The other thing was I did not make one-on-one meetings with every single person. Could not, and I would not. In the beginning, I started to, and I thought, this is craziness. So I was, again, very intentional in what I did. I was intentional in networking and I was intentional in following, meeting people, but I always followed up no matter where I met people.
That's great. And you started with knowing your ideal client. You had to know who you were trying to target in your new business. And I'll just share with everybody listening to this. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't know who, or you're aspiring to be an entrepreneur, you're aspiring to have a podcast, whatever it is, if you don't know who your customer is and who you're targeting, that is step number 1. And that is the first thing that you need to do. And I will say that on the website at amazingentrepreneurs.club/resources, there is a guide there to help you identify your ideal customer persona. We'll drop it down in the show notes. You can go over there and get it as well. But Judy, I really appreciate you highlighting that, because that is the very first step. That's the first thing you have to do. And then you did the research to where they were hanging out. So you went to the appropriate networking events. I love how you said the introvert in you went first, so you didn't have to make the introductions. They came up to you. So all really, really great insights on how to network as an introvert and how to discover your client and then the power of the follow-up. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
All right. Next question. What do you believe are the 3 qualities of successful entrepreneurs?
Asking questions, listening, and follow up. There's so many other things, but I'm telling you, you have to learn how to ask questions and not just say, do you like this? Do you want this? It has to be, open-ended questions that give your person that you're speaking to an opportunity to speak. The second part of that is, it doesn't matter how much they speak if you don't listen. So I always say, no matter who I'm sitting with, are you okay if I take notes? What are they going to say? Yes or no? If they say, please don't take notes, then I don't, but no one ever says that. When I take notes, I have to listen very carefully. But what I am taking down in their own words are the things that are really important. If you ask a question and you miss that little piece of why they want to do this or where they're going or what they need, you miss it. So that's the second piece. The third piece is, like I said before, you must follow up. And it's not just one time, oh, I tried to call, nobody answered, or I sent an email, nobody responded. I don't know how many it's up to now. It used to be like 10 or 12 touch points. A touch point isn't always about business. You could say, hey, Sid, I saw this thought of you. Have a great day. Boom, nothing about business. It's a touch point. So those are the 3 things that I think you have to be able to do. Ask the questions and ask good ones. And listen actively and then follow up. And one of my favorite questions, I have a book, I don't know if you ever read Power Questions. It's amazing. It's by Andrew Sobel. One of the questions that he asks, and I started asking it, and it's usually towards the end of our conversation, I always say, so what do you still want to accomplish? And when when I ask this with CEOs, they stop and they say, no one's ever asked me that before. And then they think for a few minutes, and then they tell you things that they probably have never said out loud. And your relationship has gone to a different level. So think about the kinds of questions. You have to ask regular questions because you have to know where they are and what they want. But ask something like that because it really does elevate the whole relationship.
Yeah, there is definitely, there's an art to asking questions and there's an art to listening. I said this in the actual very first episode that we launched, which is me being interviewed, which is listening, in my opinion, is the most underdeveloped skill in the human race. Yep. Because we listen to respond rather than listen to understand. And so there's a big difference there, but I love how you started with the questions and asking open-ended, empowering questions that engage the person sitting in front of you so that they give you more than a one-word response. And I'll just give an example. Judy, how are you today?
Great.
That's a closed-ended question.
Right.
You could reframe it in a way that says, Judy, tell me what was the best thing that happened to you today?
Right. Because now I always call it an oral essay. It's almost like, and I tell people, think about that you're on, the Tonight Show or whatever it's called now. And I am the host and I say to you, Sid, this is our last show. Are you glad you're here? Yes or no? If he says no, it's the end of it, right? If I say, okay, so you've been on so many times, what was your favorite episode? There's a very different thing. And so it's like what you said, you want to get more than one word answers because really it is an oral essay and they're going to say something that you can hang on to and ask the next question.
Love it. And I could stay here all day, but we won't because we got more stuff to get through. Okay. So one more question in this section, and that is, what is the most unexpected idea that you've had and how has it impacted your business?
So the most unexpected idea that I had was we were in, I guess it was May of the pandemic, so May 2020. And like I said, I was trying to figure out something to connect people. So I came up with this panel and it was for women in financial services because they had no idea, how am I going to sell? I can't see anybody. I can't talk to anybody. I don't really like Zoom, blah, 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 blah. So I picked 4 women at all different levels in financial services. One was a producer and one was a CEO and whatever. And so we did this panel and we put it out on social media. We had, I don't know, a couple hundred women and actually men showed up as well. And it was amazing. That was it. That was what I was doing until an hour later when people were texting me and sending me emails going, who's on the next panel and when is it? And I thought, I have no idea because I was not going to be doing this. It was one and done. So 12 weeks later, we did 12 of them, and then we did a reunion of everybody. We had, I don't know, 800-900 people that showed up in the audience, and all of the speakers came back. We had speakers from Bali and Iceland and all over the place. It was the most unexpected thing. And people kept saying to me, I don't know how you did this, but with all of those people there, you made it a very intimate conversation. So if I could bottle it, I would, but I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but it was unexpectedly amazing.
So I love that story, and thank you for sharing that. And I love how they reached out to you and said, when's the next one? Like, come on, when are we going to get more of this? But I think that timing has a lot to do with things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right in the beginning, you said timing has a lot to do. We're longing for connection. We're longing to do things. And I have no doubt that if you did it again, it would be as successful, probably even more successful. But it gave you a lot more connections and expanded your brand, expanded your reach, and brought more people into Judy's world, which is great.
And I needed the connection as well.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it's not always about everybody else. It's mostly about everybody else. But once in a while, you have to talk about this person and say, I really needed that connection as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need to think about ourselves in a lot of different ways. All right, so let's move on to the next part. Please provide 3 success tips from your personal experience that could help other entrepreneurs along their journey.
So the first one I would say is build relationships before you need them, because when you need them, it's usually too late. So if you are meeting people, you need to invest in those relationships. Even if you don't need to meet anybody because you have a great job and you're not ready to be an entrepreneur, or you're a successful entrepreneur, build relationships before you need them. So that's one of them. These are in no particular order. The second one I would say is don't compromise your values. When you start out as an entrepreneur, the first thing you think about is, how am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? So you start to do anything and everything. And I actually, when I first started my company, I was offered a training contract that was going to be for 1 year. It was a big contract, but there was one tiny little caveat. I was not allowed to talk about selling in a skirt for 1 year. Now, I just started my business and I thought, well, I could hold off for another year. And I said yes. And by the time I got home, I couldn't even get out of my car. My back went out totally, because that's what happens when I compromise my values. And so when I called and said I couldn't do it, my back was fine. But I referred somebody else. I had somebody already in mind for them. So that's the second, don't compromise your values. And the third one is, you have to know your priorities. You have to know what your priorities are. My priorities are my family. Nothing comes before my family. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's $1 million contract. That's my priority. If the $1 million comes later on, great, but you don't touch this is my heart. You don't touch my people. And so that's what it is. So I would say build relationships before you need them. Don't compromise your values, and know your priorities.
Love those tips. They are spot on. I mean, all 3 of them are really, really good, but I'm going to pick a favorite. And my favorite's the first one, is build the relationship before you need it.
Yeah.
And that is by doing things like what we're doing. We met on Clubhouse. We were introduced by someone. We took that relationship offline to coffee, which is great. And now I have a relationship with you and you have one with me. And we're in a position that if needed, we could help each other.
Absolutely. And we could pick up the phone and just say, and we would pick up the phone for each other.
Yes.
It's not like, okay, I met you once and whatever. So, I mean, it's really important, because if I said right this minute, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it. I want to get a job. I have enough people in my network that I could say, okay, what do you got? And somebody would find something for me.
Sure. Point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So now we're to the last part of the episode. Okay. And this is where we get to have a little bit of fun. So I actually have a deck of cards. Okay. And if I don't know if you can hear it if I shuffle them, but I'm going to try to shuffle them real quick. I don't know if you can hear that. My shuffling is really bad. Sorry, those of you listening on podcast, but I have a deck of cards right here and they've got questions on them. And I'm going to literally just pull a random question off the top of the deck and then the middle of the deck and then the bottom of the deck. And you can watch me do it. Okay. You ready? All right. So top of the deck. Okay. First question. And these questions are all about just getting to know you a little bit better, but also have a little bit of fun along the way, because we can't always just talk about business, right?
Right.
So which activities make you lose track of time?
Playing with my grandson.
And how old is your grandson?
2.5.
Oh, that's so awesome. And he doesn't live here,
No,
but
he lives in Denver, but I'll tell you that I did not open my computer at all when I was with him. Not
oh,
at
that's so
all, because I
awesome.
didn't need to. I was totally occupied and loving every second.
So what does he call you?
Nana,
Nana, that's great. My
Nana, your
mother
son's
is a
silly.
Mimi. My
Mimi.
mother is a Mimi. We have a Nana in our family too. So it's just really interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about their grandfather, and I'm a Southerner and he is too. Like, what do you call your grandfather? And Pawpaw is what we called him.
Yeah.
Pawpaw. So, all right. Anyways. All right. Question number 2.
Okay.
Out of the middle of the deck. I just split the deck. All right. Here we go. What do you feel people complain too much about these days? Ooh,
Oh my God.
that's a really good
How
one.
about what they don't complain about? That would be easier. What do they complain about? They complain about the weather. They complain about the world. They complain about COVID. They complain about the airlines. They complain about, I think, just the climate, everything. The world is, we're in a complaining situation right now. So it's difficult because people are mean with their comments sometimes. So I try not to do that. I don't judge anybody, been judged my entire life. So I think it's just a lot of complaining. I try not to complain. I complain about something that I have control over, not what someone else has.
Oh, that's such a great point. Complain about something that you can change or you can
Yep.
control.
Yep.
And the rest of it, just let it go, because it's
Yeah.
not that bad. When you really start to look around the world and look at people in different positions, it's really not that bad. What you're going through and that airline delay might be frustrating and irritating to you, but there's somebody on the other side of the world that's looking for something to eat that day.
That's right.
And so we got to keep it in perspective, and very much so. Sorry, we're going to get off the deep end on that one.
No, the other thing I was going to say is sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you, that you're frustrated, you're upset. And sometimes, it's petty nonsense, but you still need to get it out and get rid of it. And sometimes my husband, I'll just say, okay, I just listen for 1 second. And he'll say, okay, just let it go. I'm like, okay, I just needed to get it out.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to comment.
Yes. I'm not asking you to fix anything.
Yes, it's correct. I just need to get rid of this and say this out
Yes,
loud.
because I can't. Yes. Yeah.
I do that sometimes, Judy. I just talk to my dogs.
Yeah.
Because they can't talk back, right? They just look at me
I
like,
don't know about that.
All right. Last question pulled out of the deck is, what's the nicest thing a stranger has ever done for you?
Nicest thing a stranger has ever done for you. Well, recently, part of Power Up Professionals, everybody is basically a stranger because I've never met any of them, but as a whole, they all voted for me to be Coach of the Year, which I knew nothing about. And I think that was one of the nicest things that anyone has ever done.
That is fantastic. It is very deserving, though I've only been in the group for a short time. It is very deserving. I've experienced that coaching from you as well, and very deserving. And you do great things inside that group. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So we're at the end of the show. It went really
Oh my goodness.
fast. I know.
No.
I could talk forever, that's for sure, but our listeners probably wouldn't listen forever. But Judy, I really appreciate you coming on. The whole goal of this show is for people like you to share your insights and your stories to help other people that are along their journey of being an entrepreneur, whether they're brand new, aspiring to be midway through, or maybe at the end of it, just to help them keep going and to keep moving forward, and maybe give a little bit of inspiration and hope when they need it the most, and share your insights and motivation. So I appreciate you doing it. If our community would like to get in touch with you, what is the best place for them to do that? How should they connect with you?
You can definitely go onto LinkedIn, which would be under Judy Hoberman, or on any platform. It's usually Selling in a Skirt. And you can always send me a direct message and I will respond. I'm all over social media. So it's really, really easy. And can I just say one thing to all the entrepreneurs or the aspiring ones?
Yeah.
If you are working right now and you want to leave and you really want to leave, but you can't right now because you have to make money, which is a really important thing. Don't leave money on the table unless you can. But what I did was, when I resigned, they wouldn't take my resignation for many reasons, but they wouldn't take it. But what I knew was I was giving, I had to give them 8 weeks. But what I did for those 8 weeks was every time they deposit money into my checking account, I wrote myself a note that said investment into my business. So I didn't resent it. Okay. And so what I'm saying is there's many times you want to leave like this second, because whatever it is. And believe me, I had plenty of reasons why I want to leave that second. But when you do something that gives you the outcome that you want, so that's what I did. I kept saying, investment into my business, no clue what I was going to do. But the truth of the matter was I didn't resent them because I saw the money going in and I knew I knew I was leaving. So as an aspiring entrepreneur, just make sure you don't leave something on the table that you earned. But if you do have to stay 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 months, a year, whatever, just give yourself that option to say, this is investing into my business. So
that is a great piece of advice. And I really appreciate that. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur, hit the back button by about 15 seconds, go back and listen again to what Judy said, or maybe hit it twice and listen to what she said, because it was really powerful. And Judy, we'll be sure to drop all of your social connections down in the show notes as well for anybody listening. And if you do reach out to Judy and say hello to her on social media, let her know you heard her here on the Amazing Entrepreneurs Club, so she knows how that you got to her. Judy, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And coffee on me the next time. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone, and have a great day.